Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Cradle, Book 12, Chapters 9, 10, and 11. In these chapters, Orthos and Little Blue are doing their best, but man, it is really tough for them. And we get a sequence with Northstrider that had me cackling to myself and grinning manically into the middle distance while Owen looked at me from the couch going, what is funny? What are you laughing at? Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Andy for commissioning this episode. I don't see Andy in the chat, so I'm not sure if he's here, but if you are, Andy, what's up? And you guys, this whole thing with Northstrider, oh, it was so hilarious. It was so good. And I'm really curious how many of y'all sort of like started to pick up on what was happening, because I had a moment where I was like, this presence is really getting him into this fight, and I'm feeling suspicious. And I thought, could it be Dross? But I wasn't really sure how that would even work. So I was sort of like left in a place where I thought, I don't know if it's possible to imitate that. I accept that it is, but there are a lot of times with the magical system in this universe that what is and isn't possible can take me a little bit by surprise. And that's not to say that they don't make sense. I believe that Will has very specific rules that he follows, and I think that he's pretty careful about that. But there are so many rules, and it's difficult for me to keep track. So I am sort of curious how he manages to keep track, because it's not like an easy thing. Even if you are the creator of the system, I'm sure he's got fucking charts and spreadsheets and stuff where he's like, all right. This is how this goes. This is how this goes. These are the limitations. But I am getting ahead of myself as per usual. So let's begin with chapter 9. We start off with Orthos and Little Blue, who are attempting to fight an Underlord level Aethan. And it just doesn't really feel fair. I have to side with Orthos on this. I understand that we need to push them. I understand that, they're going to be fighting bigger, badder foes than Underlords. And so there's a sense of this being like a reasonable demand. But Aethan at Underlord wasn't normal. I just don't think he is the guy. If you're going to pick somebody at Underlord, don't pick the dude who is a prodigy unmatched for 1,000 years since. Do you know what I'm saying? I just feel like that seems a bit unkind. But regardless, they're not doing well. And it's like Aethan barely has to try. A reminder, it's of course an echo. It's not or maybe it's not. I think it might just be a model. But anyway, Dross is trying to tell them he's not using any of his incomprehensible outer reality nonsense, which I do enjoy that description of it. And Orthos is like, well, he has unlimited endurance in here. So that's super unfair too if we get tired and he can't. To which Dross is like, that's not actually correct. He doesn't have unlimited endurance in here. You just didn't tire him out. And Orthos is like, ugh. He's so irritated. And again, Fighting an Overlord Aethan should have been an even match. Better, technically, since Blue was at a level comparable to Archlord. And I'm just like, again, it shouldn't be an even match, though. Like, it's not. Let's all be real. Right? Come on. Him at Underlord, or Overlord, I should say, that feels like anybody else at Herald, is the sense that I get of what they talk about, you know? So, if they were going up against monarchs and dread gods, then they were fighting opponents that couldn't be exhausted or outlasted. A mere overlord, no matter how skilled, was little better than a copper on that scale. And then Dross comes over and says, I know it's tough. You were the first to collapse in the willpower training. You're the least advanced. All your friends have passed you by. You know you need the most help, and you feel inadequate, insecure, inflated. No, that one doesn't work. Incompetent. Orthos wanted to lash out at Dross, but he closed his eyes instead. Yes. I really, really enjoy that everybody in these chapters are just kind of admitting their fears, shortcomings, all of that. Everybody is being more vulnerable than usual, which honestly, if there's a time to do it, now's the time. You know, you're shacked up with a bunch of other people who are all desperately striving to overcome a power that is like unmatched in your world. And it's possible you're gonna like die at any point. Maybe there's a secret monarch attack. Maybe the dread god shows up and you have to go in on it a little faster and you die. Who knows how much time you've got left? So I feel like, yeah, it makes sense to me at this point why everybody is setting aside their instinctual, like, tendencies to lash out or clam up and just really talk about some things. Not that it's like a big conversation here, but just that Orthos admits this. We all know Orthos by now. He is not a guy who likes to share a sense of insecurity or feelings of doubt or defeat. It's just something that he is ashamed of feeling. And it doesn't have to be a big conversation for this to be kind of an important moment. So this is when Dross is like, all right, look, we could go a little bit harder. And Orthos and Blue think he just means like train more. And they're like, dude, we're fucking like half dead. That's not the answer. And he's like, no. Hear me out. We have got elixirs and stuff that we've been giving you. And it's the kind of like careful plan that would make sure you maintain your sense of identity and your basically mental stability. However, there are some other versions that we came up with where that would be on the table as potentially something to sacrifice if things went left. I'm not saying it will definitely happen, but it depends on how much you want to push it. The more you push it, the likelier it is. It's up to you. And Blue is really unsure. It's like Orthos is the one who immediately starts to consider this. She bit her lower lip and her shoulders were hunched. He couldn't sense her feelings as clearly as Lindon could, but she was nervous. However, she still gave a decisive nod. And I'm really concerned about this. We start to see the evidence of what's going on here pretty quickly with a confrontation with Yaren a little bit later. But what's bugging me about everybody's like motivations in this is that not that everybody wants to help so much as everybody is so deeply frustrated that they can't keep up with Lindon. And it just reminded me of what we had going, like whenever we're in Osmanthus's memories, he always was alone. Nobody could keep up with him. And he would be very frustrated by that. But he would continue to plow on ahead and just sort of accept nobody's going to keep up with me. It's easier for me to go alone. Like bringing other people slows me down. And I think that's what sort of moves him so much when Lindon has that speech in the labyrinth when he's still with everybody. And he's like, I don't want to leave any of you behind. I'm going to make sure you all come with me. Is that Osmanthus maybe looks back and is sort of wishing that he had taken the time to like connect with people and didn't let like forward movement on his own path outshine all human connection, basically. But I think that if Lindon saw how much everybody is like, I hesitate to say motivated because it almost feels like they're just discouraged by it and they're using it to push themselves. But there is a sense of hopelessness to it a little bit, the way everybody's like talking about it or thinking about it, that I think would bum Lindon out. And that's not to say that he should slow down on their behalf or anything, because fucking no. But there is, for me, a little bit of sadness in this. In everybody's POV that we go into, they all are just so fucking annoyed that they can't keep up, you know? So anyway, okay. We go to Akura Charity's POV. And she has just like, we're looking at the Echo, which is still in play at this moment. And Charity is shook. And she gets like shooken even more as the chapter goes on. She is keeping herself, as usual, ice cold on the outside and not showing how she feels about anything. Which, it made me really curious, you guys. You know, we've talked about her being the Sage of the Silver Heart, but I don't really know what that means. And she is like, it's mentioned at one point that the fact that she has the connection to it means that she can sort of compartmentalize a little bit more, which I thought was wild, and I don't really get it. But anyway, Min Shui is here, who of course wears her heart on her sleeve. And she says, what are we doing here? Because this attack is so insane from just an Echo. It's so beyond anything they could ever hope to fight back against. And he says, my apologies, Sage, but surely we shouldn't fight him here. This is Akura justice, which it must be really something to be as old as he is and then see like Lindon do what he's done. So Min Shui, she basically just like gets herself psyched up and tells all of her people, come with me, we strike from the front, which they are not excited about. Charity takes her people and is like, we'll strike from the flank. And they begin down this like sort of channel. I'm trying to think of what the word is here. Fractured passage is the way she describes it. I had hoped you would be on my side, Charity, Lindon said quietly. Charity ignored him, speaking to the rest of her team. A Silent King illusion, continue as before. This technique is not dangerous without the protection of the labyrinth. Lindon raised an eyebrow at that and casually stepped across the boundary of Sacred Valley. A moment later, he stood in their midst. The air trembled, though the archlords held up admirably to the pressure. They shouted, crashing into him with techniques from different paths. I don't know why I found that so funny, but it's like, yeah, they held up admirably, and it's them just yelling. And he's able to wipe this out with Hollow Domain, even though it's just an illusion of him. And she's like, I don't understand how he's doing this. Like, she is keeping it cool outside, but inside she's genuinely freaked. And I love this exchange so much. If you can carry a message back to your real self, then tell him this. We can have this discussion peacefully. I didn't attack your home, Lindon said. And then she starts to do well, we have to stop you from killing the weeping dragon. The damage, more than letting the dread gods live for centuries. This is foolish. We fought on the same side for years. You saw how Malice treated Mercy. You think I'm the one who betrayed you? Charity had better arguments. She had lived for over a century, and her connection to the heart icon helped keep her thoughts and feelings organized. However, she didn't have a response to this. Not because she couldn't think of one, because in her heart, she felt that he was right. This is just the best, you guys. I love, it's not like she's just turning her back on her family. But I really appreciate that despite everything, and how determined she is to still assist Malice, when faced with these absolute facts, she's not lying to herself. She's not deluded. She can look at them and objectively be like, he's fucking right, though. And I appreciate that a lot, because it would have been very easy to write her as somebody who's just going to plow ahead. And it's a little less interesting to go that way, you know? And I love, Justice destroys one of the copies and is really fucking, pumping himself up a little bit. And then there's another copy of Lindon exactly there. I don't want to hurt any of you. This is not your battle. So finally, Charity just tells Malice, we're not going to be able to pull anything off here. That's it. We're out. I'm sorry. And Lindon says, gratitude. Mercy will be pleased. So then we go to the Winter Sage, who of course attacks him immediately, doesn't let him talk, doesn't let him do anything. And he keeps talking despite the attacks, talking through them. And at this point, he says Yeren would be disappointed in you. And she says you don't understand anything. I'm really curious about this. There is something about the way she says you don't understand anything that makes me feel like there is a different story here. It's not I don't know. I feel like there's something personal. I don't know what. But, because he does know the way that things work with the dread gods. And I am assuming she is also aware of this fact. And I'm not positive about that, but I think so. So it's not about him being wrong regarding the primary way of getting rid of the dread gods. I feel like there's something additional happening here. And I don't know. So, when he says, I can put the dread gods down for good, she says, no, you can't. Nobody can. Do you think you're the first to try? And I'm like, maybe she doesn't know. I don't know. I thought she did, but and when he says I can, she says, then prove it. And she does the same exact thing that Justice did. She says he's not a true dread god yet. And I love this moment. She came to a violent halt in midair when a shadow passed over her. Not a physical shadow, not even Malice's shadow Madra. Something cold and dark pressed on her spiritual senses, and she looked up. The real Lindon hovered over her. I have a few seconds, he said. Sword artists prove themselves in combat, don't they? Minshui bared her teeth. That's right. Then allow me to show you my proof. Without his dread god weapon, Lindon shot beyond the protection of the labyrinth and attacked. As he said, the battle only lasted a few seconds. Yo. Look. I don't want to be too much of a fangirl here, but come on. That is pretty satisfying. Oh my God. Dan says, Ethan is like Michael Phelps, born better than anyone else, an amazing drive, intelligence, and natural talent. It's just not fair. That's a very good comparison. Yeah, this is something that comes up for me a lot because people are just and I'm not trying to get into a whole political argument here, but there are so many people who they're like masking their transphobia and like, well, is it fair to have people who are trans compete in competitions that are gendered when they have obvious advantages because of like physiological? And it's like, I got news for you. All sports rely on physiological advantages that other people may not have. Like, that's just how sports work. And we like to act like, oh, as long as you practice as much as another person, that just means that you will be on equal footing. And that's just a lie. Like, it's just a straight up lie. People get better not only because they practice a lot, but because their bodies are made a certain way and another person's isn't. It's just the facts, man. People metabolize foods differently. People have different lengths of legs and arms and shins and different resilience to their joints and different, like with Michael Phelps, it's like the shape of his hands, the length of his arms. He doesn't like produce as much lactic acid, so he doesn't get as sore. Like a million things come together. And so just trying to be like, oh, well, we're keeping gender separated the way that we think they should be because of like equality. Nah, there never was any. We just don't face that. Let's be real. That's just more of the meritocracy thing. So anyway, then we go to Rhaegon Shen, and you guys know that I had been there wanting to see so bad his reaction to getting spanked like this. And we actually don't get so much of his reaction as we do him being like, all right, what the fuck do I do now? It's not like we do get some of him being scared because of course that's why he's running and not facing Lindon. But there's a definite sense of, all right, focus, plan, figure out what now. And I just wanted to luxuriate a little bit more in him being like, what the fuck? I do not think it should have been written that way. I would like to just put this there right here, right now. When I say that I want more of everybody being afraid of Lindon and feeling humiliated, I do not mean it. Not really. I am saying, like, for my personal satisfaction, I would have loved it. But in terms of what good writing is, I am glad Will restrains himself, because otherwise it would really just feel like dick sucking. And Lindon's performance speaks for itself. I don't need it to know that he is just absolutely freaking these monarchs out. I don't need it. I know that's what's happening. But just for me, just for like my petty little bitchy self, I would like it. Just, you know, just a little bit. That's all I'm saying. So he has decided, I am going to fucking find where his home is, and I am going to tear that bitch up. And is depending on the fact that Lindon wouldn't have parked it in Sacred Valley. Everybody's assuming that's where it is. And Shen is like, yeah, I don't think so. You know what? If it is, that sucks for me. But I can't go fight him. So I'm going to go do something that will get his attention and fuck his whole day up. And I am going to go after his people, which that is the cowardly thing to do. So I love this moment. Either way, he wasn't returning to Sacred Valley. That echo had almost killed him. From within himself, he felt Osmanthus Aurelius laugh and laugh. I loved that. I keep forgetting that Osmanthus's like consciousness is a little bit inside him from his inheritance. So every time I'm reminded, I just keep wondering, like, if Rhaegon dies and Lindon kills him, can he take the inheritance out of Rhaegon Shen's soul? Like, by consuming him? Like, would that work? Very curious about it. I don't know that it's that crucial at this point to get it, but I'm going to go ahead and just say, like, you know, if I had my druthers. So then we go to Lindon. And he is just figuring out where he stands with everything, realizes that Rhaegon has not stayed, but doesn't consider why he's left, so that catches up with him later. At this moment, he's acknowledging that, like, okay, we've got two monarchs who both want to waste my time and hold me here. And him and Dross are talking about next steps. And there's an unfortunate moment. Dross says, we don't have any echoes left. Not technically none, but no significantly useful ones, except for the ones involved in our ... ultimate solution, which was a little too close to final solution, which made me a little bit creeped out, be honest there. But so some of the hunger bindings are damaged and will need our attention since the Restoration Authority in the labyrinth is strained as it is. You can imagine why. And they are fucking things up. Lindon admits that the bow is too much for him to use again, to which Dross is like, honestly, I was surprised that you were able to use it last time. So that's definitely true. Don't do it again. And let's see. Are you ready, Dross? Let's take it 1 second at a time. He leaned on an advantage of the fortress to make it this far. He left Sacred Valley, and he goes up to Northstrider without doing like spatial transfer because he knows Northstrider's going to see it anyway and overpower his authority. So he just does it in the physical sense. And here it is. Lindon ignited the soul cloak and kicked off a platform of wind aura, slipping aside Northstrider's punch and preparing one of his own. The black orb over Northstrider's shoulder flickered with power, and the future changed. I just want to point out, that's a pretty big hint. I missed it, though. I listened to this section twice, of course. I actually may have listened to this section 3 times, I'm just saying. But I definitely did not catch what that meant. So then begins the fight between the two of them, and my suspicions just continue to grow as I'm reading, right? And he is like darting out of the boundary and then landing blows if he can and darting back inside the boundary. So let's see. He then says to Northstrider, let's duel for these weapons. And Malice is like, oh sweet, a fair fight? And Lindon, his plan here is to get them into a soul oath. So we go into Northstrider's mind. He has 2 advantages. His primary plan will be to use the labyrinth, which has several functions that can reach beyond the boundaries. His backup will be a clash of authority. He believes his hunger madra will give him an edge in your clash. And Northstrider asks, will it? Not enough. And all of this, like, it was all just feeding so much into making Northstrider supremely confident in a way that I was just highly suspicious of. Like, this codex is so certain, and it felt to me unwarranted. So I was just very, very, very suspicious here. And Northstrider says, I will swear to duel you, but we fight to the death, surrender, or the arrival of the weeping dragon. I will not call for or allow any outside assistance if you swear the same, but that must include the labyrinth. Malice turned to him with a shock he was sure was feigned. And I really liked this moment because we've seen moments before of Northstrider and Malice like ganging up. I think it was against Seshethkanaz. Oh boy. Where she was like acting outraged about something and it was a complete lie, and he was sort of sitting back going, wow, she's actually very convincing, even though I know she's full of shit. So I enjoyed a reminder here about how fucking big a manipulator she is, and she truly consummate actress. Like, it's disturbing a little bit, you know? So Lindon has like this flicker in his expression that his codex tells him is Lindon being relieved. And he says, okay, well, what about prizes? And of course, Northstrider wants the bow. And Malice tacks on, well, if you want me to make a fucking soul oath not to interfere, I want something too. Give me my daughter back. And I really like, Lindon won't make that bet, the Oracle Codex predicted. I will not turn Mercy over, Lindon said. And that's a really great little, like, if I am to believe that Dross has fully taken over this, like, codex and is 100% the one narrating to Northstrider right now, what I like to think about that is they set up a moment for him to be right so that it continues to cement Northstrider's confidence in his codex. And that Lindon and Dross, like, they're connected mentally. So it isn't even like Lindon had to plan, she'll ask for mercy and I'll say no. I'm assuming that, like, Dross can connect to Lindon's mind still the normal way. And so the moment she asks, Lindon thinks, yeah, I'm not doing that. And Dross picks that up. So he says, Lindon, if I win, you both return to Moongrave until the Weeping Dragon is defeated or I am. And Northstrider says to a maximum of 3 days. And I was like, that feels a little bit shady. But then it goes on to say he wasn't going to be trapped in one city because of a loophole in an oath, nor was he going to let Lindon drag him into a week-long battle. And I was like, oh, that didn't occur to me, but that's a really good point. Okay, fair. At first I was very resistant to that, and then I stopped and was like, yeah, I keep forgetting about how fucking, like, bonkers all of your abilities are, and that's a genuine potential outcome. So yeah. And then Lindon says, agreed, shake on it, and he holds out his Dread God arm. You guys, this little joker. This felt a little out of character for Lindon, I'm going to be honest, but I was fine with it. So they all swear, and then the fight begins. And Northstrider it's a really weird thing being in his head for this. The main thing that's going on is a combination of disgust with Lindon for being so cocky. When Northstrider's, in his view, Lindon is like relying on a couple of tricks and isn't as advanced. What it comes down to with these guys repeatedly is that they think Lindon is overstretching himself. And he keeps proving that that's not true. And they keep thinking, well, that must have tired him out. So now he's overstretching himself. And that's not to say that these fights aren't having an effect, because Lindon is worn the fuck out by the end of this. But they just keep being certain that there is an element of ego involved with what Lindon's doing that isn't actually there. And I'm not trying to say that he doesn't have any ego, because as we saw with the way that he was butting heads with the Sword Sage in that Echo, he definitely has some pride and ego, like it's there. But it's not the motivating factor that it is for all the other monarchs, which is what makes them monarchs that are willing to stay in Cradle, because they have that kind of ego. And they truly can't seem to wrap their minds around somebody having the sort of power that Lindon has without the ego they all share. And that strikes me as a very true thing. People who believe that others are a certain kind of awful are very often themselves that kind of awful. And they justify it by telling themselves that most people are this way, you know? And that's, you know, I've talked about this a million times, but if you ever wondered what the deal is behind like the kinds of quizzes that you have to take when you're applying for a job and they're asking you to answer stuff like, do you think that most people would steal if they felt they could get away with it? If you answered yes, that you think most people would, what you're really saying is that you would steal if you felt you could get away with it, which is pointing you out as a security risk potentially. So it seems like they're asking questions about how you see the world, but what you're really doing is telling on yourself. So anyway, I just really enjoy this fight because like Northstrider is truly he's projecting actually is what's going on. And also feeling like frustrated at the fact that there's really potential in Lindon and he's just sort of throwing it all away. And it's not even like that deep a regret, but it's definitely there a little bit, you know? And no matter how many unique advantages Lindon had had, inexperience would always show himself. So Lindon keeps trying to do consume, and Northstrider is just like, I don't get it. When he tries to consume off of me, it's like it's allowing me to land some hits that are doing so much more damage than the consume will fix. It's like just out of proportion. I don't understand what's happening here. And what we find out is happening is that Lindon is letting it look like he's taking a lot more damage than he really is. So, yeah, Northstrider almost didn't want to continue. His disgust was too much. This felt like bullying a child. And I love that he's in the midst of being like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And then Malice shows up and is like, this is the best. There is something so correct about that. Just as Northstrider starts to reach a point where he's like, I'm grossed out. That's when Malice is at her happiest and most delighted. And Northstrider says to her, how did you let him beat you? And she says, we already squeezed him dry today, didn't we? Sure, but also he was with Yeren. So, you know, not for nothing. So at this point, Lindon is looking like he can't even like focus his eyes. Like he's so fucked up. And Northstrider tells him to surrender. Lindon reaches up to begin consuming again. And the Oracle Codex scoffed. He's too weak, definitely. We're in the clear. And that was the moment where I was like, that's different tone than we've had. And Northstrider is himself like sweet. He sees the future stretching out and is excited about it. And then all of a sudden he's like, wait, what did you just say? Oh, Dross. I said he's too weak. What's the problem? Oops. Would you believe me if I've said I've advanced in the middle of battle? No? Game's up, Lindon. Oh my God. Oh my God. So he comes back to himself and he realizes Malice has been yelling at him from the sidelines and Lindon is sucking him fucking dry. And I do not mean that in the good way. And he is so weak that he's trying to like use his authority to say release and it's not doing the job. He's trying to physically fight back. Not happening. It's described as feeble. Ooh, that has to hurt. Truly. And what's so beautiful about this, as it specifically says, the consume technique that Lindon is using, Northstrider taught him. Wow. That's rough, bud. That's rough, buddy. I mean, really didn't see that future unfolding before you, huh? So Lindon's body just starts to like heal itself and his black flame comes back As Northstrider watched through dazed eyes, the power took on more and more of the aspect of a true dragon. And Northstrider saw something else. And there's a dragon icon manifesting, but it's not really Lindon who's doing it. It's just that he's got hold of Northstrider's authority, and that's what's doing it. So all of this, I'm thinking, is he going to fucking kill Northstrider? Is that what's going to happen? But no, because if he kills him, that opens up Malice to come at him. This is brilliant. Because I truly thought, of course he's going to kill him. Like, what else would you do? But no. Malice is bound by her oath to not interfere, so Lindon reminds her it's to either the Weeping Dragon arriving or surrender or death. He didn't surrender, and he's not dead. So you're not going to break your oath and fuck around, are you? And Malice is like, okay, when I made the oath, this wasn't really the scenario I agreed to, so maybe the oath won't... Oh, God. Okay. Nope. It's not going to let me. Truly, in substance, what Lindon is saying, the fight isn't over, is actually true. It's not likely at all, but it's possible. So he has laid down and, like, tricked her into agreeing to, yeah, there's nothing she can do. And he has not made any promise that he isn't going to hurt Malice. So basically, he's like free to attack her and she can't do shit back to him. And oh man, you guys, she just flees. She just runs away. Just embarrassment after embarrassment for her. She must be so pissed, you guys. Oh my God. So, yeah, she's fleeing. And then we go over to chapter 11. Lindon is fucked up. He has managed to keep the appearance of like, I made you think I was fucked up, but really I'm in control. The instant she's out of there, though, it's like he collapses, basically. Northstrider's power that he has absorbed is unbelievably powerful. And Lindon is having a really hard time wrestling it into submission. And this is why, later on, Dross hasn't noticed what's going on with Shen, because Dross is completely overwhelmed here and is desperately trying to like organize things and manage it on Lindon's behalf so that Lindon can like, you know, continue to manage his body, basically. And as for Lindon, he barely had a thought to spare about Dross. All his attention was going to the heart of Twin Stars as it divided the spiritual river they drained from Northstrider into tiny streams of many colors. He was only holding on by the tips of his fingers. And it says he needed to trick Northstrider into thinking the fight was over. And guess what? It almost was. I was definitely on the edge there. That was a bad scene for me. So, Northstrider's memories were a waterfall of images and impressions, but Lindon had to let them go without inspection. There were surely lifetimes of lessons within, but even a fraction of Northstrider's knowledge was like having 1,000 books crammed into his mind at once. If he tried to dive in, he would be overwhelmed. Dross could sort the memories later when he recovered. There would be treasures buried in Northstrider's mind. I'm really, really looking forward to that. Very much. So he's like feeling himself a little bit. And all of a sudden, he stretches his like consciousness north and feels Rhaegon Shen closing in. And it's just the way Shen is traveling. This is not a random, I'm still searching. He fucking found Windfall. It's like beyond a doubt. And Lindon is freaking out a little bit. And he tries to just like do the authority home, but he's so upset and so frazzled by everything that he's dealing with internally that at first it doesn't work. And he's like, he has to like take a moment and collect himself. And when he does this and it connects with the way, it fucks him up again. Like, he is just in such bad shape that this kind of manipulation of authority isn't easy at the moment. So, Yaren, we go into her POV. And guys, this is one of those things where I just want to slap and shake her. And I understand. I do. But oh my God, Yaren, she is just letting the fact that she doesn't personally like Red Faith to completely overshadow the fact that he has been proven right about so many things. And I understand how it is where if you don't like somebody and you don't trust them, it affects everything about the way that you perceive them. But I really thought there was a point in the previous book where she's like starting to understand him a little bit better, and she thinks to herself that in a weird way she felt that she could trust him. And I thought we had reached a point where it was like, yeah, he's a fucking maniac with no sense of like empathy or compassion, but he does what he says he's going to do, and he's very predictable. So at least there's that. But it seems like even though she kind of came to this realization, it's one thing to have that realization for a moment. And it's another thing to really keep it in mind and have it completely change the way you view someone. And that hasn't happened. So she's letting her personal feelings about this guy cloud her judgment. And he is clearly trying to help her, and she is not hearing him. And in my mind, it seemed very obvious what it was that he was pointing out here. But because she's so fucking irritated, she can't let herself see it at first. So she's cycling, there's a tapping sound, and he is standing next to a chalkboard. And he is trying to get her to notice this thing that he has circled that says Crimson Desire. And when she's like, I don't get what you're trying to do, he points to it again. And she's talking about like, I need pointers. I don't know what I'm missing. I think I just have to practice. He points to it again. And I'm like, I'm not sure whether or not, because, you know, remnants are still sort of a bit of an area that I don't totally understand. And he doesn't talk, this remnant, even though remnants can talk. And she's very frustrated that he won't. I'm wondering why that is. Because he certainly didn't mind talking in life. He was a fucking chatterbox. So I don't know if it's because things tend to be so much more conceptual that he's using that sort of language here instead of just saying to her, you need to really want to kill somebody. But I still thought Crimson Desire felt like self-explanatory, honestly. Finally, what he does is writes, I killed your family. I planted that blood shadow, all to find someone like you. I would kill your family 1,000 times again. And Yaren, like, kind of loses it, and she's about to destroy him. And he points to the symbol that says cycle. He can see it in her eyes. So she does. To her credit, as irritated as she's been and as furious as she is now, she does listen. And she starts to cycle. He taps and like makes her open her eyes. I would kill your family 1,000 times again. And then all of a sudden, everything clicks into place. And she's like, oh, I need to really want to fucking kill them. Which she doesn't like. And I kind of appreciated that. Because it would be extremely easy to have the woman who is a master swordswoman and a fighter and somebody who is just like unparalleled in physical combat and swordsmanship be also somewhat bloodthirsty. And while Yaren is down for a fight, it's always because she's like interested in pushing herself. It's never really because she's like, I want to spill blood. Exactly. That's not to say there aren't people that she goes into a fight being like, I'm going to take you down. But it's not that kind of like, doesn't ever feel like the purpose. It always feels like her purpose is larger and grander. So this moment of understanding and the fact that she's sort of like, ew, but that feels gross. I just think that makes her a good person. It will make things difficult for her, though, if she can't tap into that easily. And I like that she says thanks. The crimson skeleton threw its hands into the air with exasperation. Then it wiped away its taunts. And she asks how much of that was true. And he's like, I didn't give a shit about you, and I don't keep track of blood shadows. And she's like, yeah, that's fair. So we have her worry about Lindon being out there because she is getting like some updates about what's going on with his fight from Dross, apparently. And this is something like later on when she's talking to Mercy. Mercy is like, yeah, it's really hard to relax when you're worried, which is just so true. It's such a simple, of course it would be difficult, but when you're truly worried, it's like you can almost be nauseous with that anxiety, So she opens her void key and there are 2 spirits in there. So she decides that she's going to try this technique. And it's a weird thing. The technique lined up, but not perfectly. And she starts to think about the monarchs, and then that improves it. She pushed further. She remembered Rhaegon Shen's face as he looked down at them in the labyrinth. She pictured malice, treating Yaren like a worm on a hook and doing worse to Mercy. The sound burst into full song, and Yaren opened her eyes. Soft red moonlight drifted off her in a subtle aura, and a sound that reminded her of the Bleeding Phoenix's song drifted around her. This is so cool. I think it's really interesting that it's like described as red moonlight, because I don't know if I would be looking at somebody, if I would know the difference between like any sort of other light and moonlight in just the way that it looks devoid of the moon for context, if that makes sense. So I would really like to see the design of this. But she slashes the remnants in half, and it says the places where she'd cut them turned red. Silver red light burst from the wounds like chains, wrapping them all over and binding them in place. And all of a sudden, she can feel them connected to her somehow. And she is able to sort of like weirdly control them like puppets. And they're still there. It's so bizarre. It's like she's taking control of them, even though they don't have actual blood, I guess. They have blood aura in them, which is enough. And let's see. She says, hop up and down, and they start to do it, and Dross pops out, and she's like, okay, tell me in 10 words or less what happened. And he says, you take what you can, and the rest is captured. She had based this on the Phoenix Madra's ability to create blood spawn, but she had been picturing something different. She'd imagined draining power from the people she stabbed like they were blood spawn delivering power to the Phoenix. Red Faith had seized on that concept and added his own designs to it, but it was still rare for a technique to work so differently to the user's imagination. As Yaren herself had once taught Lindon, the intentions behind a technique were one of the most important parts. I am extremely curious why this manifests this way. Like, what it is that makes it shake out like this as opposed to what she was sort of imagining. It's just like, I'm really, really curious about this. Is it because her desire to kill isn't quite, it's more like desire to stop people, control them a little bit more than it is for their lives to simply end. I don't know. So anyway, after this conversation with Dross, she says, thanks. And he is very shocked that she thanked him, which we really got our first indication of surprise at being thanked from Red Faith's remnant. But that's doesn't count to me quite. So when she's like, I say thanks sometimes, he's like, well, you didn't say thanks to Ethan. And she admits she thinks about that moment all the time and all of the things that she could have said in the moment and whether she should have. And Dross is like genuinely moved, it seems, that she opened up to him at all. I really liked this moment. So she practices this for a while, and then it goes to Zeal. And it's not like we're in his POV, we're still in hers, but she's checking up on him and on Mercy. And Zeal is getting better at controlling this manipulation of time. But he's frustrated because it doesn't go perfectly. And Yaren has to remind him, you did better than yesterday. That's literally all you can do. And he says, like, he nods like decisively in a way that surprises her. But then he says right after, well, the monarch who literally invented this was still killed by dread gods. So even after I master it, that's not exactly like we're home free. And she's like, how come you can't just be happy? And he's like, but I am happy. And seems truly perplexed that she isn't getting that. Honestly, I kind of enjoy seeing Yaren be baffled at Zeal's response to stuff, because Yaren can be so difficult with the way that she protects herself and doesn't share her thoughts a lot, that it's like a little of her own medicine, I think, you know? Then we have this moment where she decides that she's going to activate the path of heaven that has like the darkness and void in it. It's death. And there's something about it that feels very familiar. And she's being drawn toward it and doesn't realize until Zeal reaches out and stops her and is like, hey, I wouldn't. Just saying. And she realizes and is like, oh my God, and backs up. And there's something about her feeling like death is so familiar that I'm like, maybe that's what you should connect with. Not necessarily like death itself, but somehow like that danger. I don't know what that would even be. But yeah, I just found that kind of fascinating, you know? So then she goes to Orthos and Little Blue. And Orthos, he's not himself entirely. At one point, there's like an attack and he doesn't try to protect her from the fire, which she can protect herself fine, but it just feels a little bit inconsiderate. And then she says, let's see, it's the time for rest. And he says that, let's see, where is it? I'm trying to find, oh no, sorry. This is when the fucking Archlord shade is like getting in her face. I forgot about this. This happens right before Orthos. This fucking guy. Noraloth, your protector has been gone a long time. He loomed over her, his too wide mouth baring teeth. The rest of you take me too lightly. Yaren took a stance. She had no trouble getting in the proper mindset for this one, not with the Herald's remnant looming over her, and after staring into the darkness of death. Before she could swing, Noraloth crashed to the ground. He slunk toward her on his belly. I was kidding. Of course, kidding. There's no need to take me so seriously. Oh my God, dude. Have some dignity. Jesus Christ. It is pitiful. So, she tells Orthos to take a breath. I will not bow to a human. You tell me that was something you would have said before, and I'll cut you down for being a liar. And he takes a second. He looks real mad for a moment, and then he's like, ooh, I'm sorry. And she's assuming this is black flame damage. But he's like, no, it's the memories. It's like what I'm absorbing, the wills of these things. It sort of makes me like forget who I am. It's not even that their memories replace mine. It's that I know they're not mine, but I can't find my way back to myself. And that's a really freaky description that I don't love. I understand that they're pushing themselves, but I am genuinely concerned. I'm not loving it. I'm just not loving it. So, Yaren basically is like, go to sleep. And at first, he's like, yeah. And she's like, no, really. I don't get it. But sleep does something. It's true. Just go take a break for a little while. And we have her reflecting here. It would be easier if she couldn't do anything at all, or so she thought. Then she'd have no choice but to stay put. Having the choice and having to choose over and over again to do nothing, to be disciplined, to use time efficiently. It reminded her of her early days training the endless sword. And that's the thing. That's it, guys. Having the choice to not do it and choosing to do it anyway, that's the part that defines whether or not you've got discipline surrounding something. And it is really fucking hard. I've been struggling with this myself with Sam and Pippin and what we've been dealing with. We couldn't put Sam outside for any length of time because he had this open wound and it would get filthy. So we had to wake up and separately take each of them on walks first thing in the morning so that we could then put Pippin in the backyard and bring Sam back inside. However, now Sam, his wound is closed up enough that we don't have to walk him immediately. We can open the gate to the backyard and just let him go in back and have a little bit of extra time in the morning. And now that it's not like required that we take them out because we've got no other options for tiring him before he's in the house, now we're sleeping in a little bit too much and not like getting the walks in that we should be getting. And it's just made me realize like, wow, do I really need to have literally no choice in order to do something that's like healthy for me and for the dogs? That sucks. Like, I don't like knowing that about myself, you know? But also I was so exhausted. I really was, you guys. Oh, because it wasn't like I was getting a full 8 hours. When we were getting up that early, we were getting like around 6.5, which for me, doing about 6.5 for a week and a half, that really starts to wear me down. It's like a couple of days of that, no big deal. But once you get into like a solid week and change, that's too much. And I start to really crumple. Anyway, I just really appreciated that mention. So this is when she goes over to, oh wait, real quick. She like voices her concerns here. Again, with everybody being vulnerable. And she says, what if we don't make it? And Orthos is like, for what it's worth, Lindon has absolutely no doubts that we will make it. Like, I've never sensed any concern, genuine doubt from him at all, which does seem to make her feel better. So she goes to see Mercy, and this moment was great. Mercy is just chilling, drinking an elixir, and it's clearly like taking a toll because it's got elements of her mother. But Yaren, despite having just said, we should rest, it's good for us, can't help but see Mercy resting and kind of a little bit be like, what the fuck? Yo, I hate that about myself. I do the same thing, you guys. I will recognize intellectually that, like, rest is required. That, like, a puritanical mindset and capitalism combined have given me an unhealthy work ethic and a sense of shame surrounding taking breaks that are totally necessary. I will know that. That does not mean, though, when I see other people getting to rest and take breaks, that a part of me doesn't kind of go, must be nice, with a fucking tone. You know what I mean? And I don't like that. I can recognize it and sort of, that's the key, is like, when you're being unreasonable, if you're able to see that you're being unreasonable and take a little bit of a step back and be like, girl, come on, don't do that, you're starting to win the battle. But I did like that being included, that she can say rest is super important. Doesn't change the fact that this is kind of like, wow, okay, I'm over here like throwing myself into yet another routine, and here you are chilling in a hammock. So Mercy and Blue are chatting, and Yaren comes over, and Blue asks her how things are going with Lindon, and Mercy is very gratified that she opened the subject up. And when Yaren says that it's been 11 days since Lindon left, Mercy is really surprised. Apparently this elixir is kind of fucking with her sense of time. And she's like, I need to spend more time in my own head. So this, guys, I know it's hard waiting. I feel the same way. But I wish I had a Lindon. I'm jealous of you. I knew exactly what she meant, but I understand Yaren kind of being like, I'm sorry, what's that? Because, you know, she wants companionship. She's wanting somebody that she's like super close to, the way that Yaren is. I get it. I really get it. But the way she worded it, and also apparently Blue is like sort of aware of what Mercy's mom was like floating, which I want to know how she knows that. I guess that like Lindon must know it, because I would assume Blue would find out from him. But anyway, Yaren understands what she means when she like manages to correct herself. I'm only saying you have a good thing. I'm happy for you, and I'm sorry he's not here. So then Yaren's like, all right, so how have you been feeling? And Mercy's like, ew. Oh my God, I can't believe you would just ask me that. I know that I just asked you that, but really being on the receiving end of this is sucky and I hate it. And listen, you should still ask me though. We don't talk enough. Little Blue sang out to remind them that she was still there. And I was like, yeah, ask Little Blue how she's feeling. I just want to just include her, you know? But anyway, Yaren has decided that she's going to lay down and try and rest. Probably can't sleep. She'll give it a shot. And as soon as she gets comfortable, the alarm goes off. And she immediately figures it out. The air throughout Ghostwind Hall boiled as some of the others sensed it too. Lindon had left automatic defenses, but they wouldn't be enough. Rhaegon Shen had found them, and they weren't ready. And that is the end of 11. Extremely rude, I would like to say again. I don't like having this schedule. You guys, I'm pretty sure that for the next one, I only get to read 2 chapters, which is extremely, extremely mean. And I know I set this reading order up. I stand by that. It's mean. 12 and 13, indeed, only 2 chapters. Ugh. I'm so pissed. Anyway. Asher says, I get the sense that Blue and Mercy are genuine buddies. I wouldn't be surprised if Mercy told her. No, because Mercy says, how did you find out about that? I'm trying to find the moment. Here it is. Yeah, here it is. She says, no, I didn't say that. That was my mother. Wait, how did you hear about that? So I don't think so. I think maybe Mercy would have told Blue, but it doesn't seem like she did. So who knows? Okay. Time to wrap. I really, guys, this is killing me that this is going to be the last book. Devastated. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to say goodbye to this world. Says the girl who wants to just binge the entire book and have it be over by this evening. I know. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you again so much to Andy for commissioning this. Thank you to everybody who hung out in the chat. I'm so sorry. I'm bored. Left a comment. I think it has to do with how the Phoenix uses blood shadows to puppet people and the combo of what happened with Yaren being able to control blood spawn at the end of Skysworn. Interesting. That makes sense. Okay. I like that. Yeah, I'm going to think that over. But I'm not looking forward to this fight with Rhaegon Shen, guys. I'm just so worried about everybody already that I don't know. I don't know what I expect. I really don't. But I'm nervous, and I appreciate that the writing for this series is so good that even though I'm mostly certain people are coming out of the other end of this, I still can have this genuine concern. I like it. All right. So, you know what? There was one other thing that I wanted to mention. And let me just double check this here. Okay, yeah. So, next week, I have a couple of wannabe episodes and a movie episode. And those are falling on Tuesday, Thursday, which would mean that I wouldn't be covering Cradle at all for all of next week. I am curious about maybe moving some episodes from the very tail end of this booking into those slots. And Andy, I don't remember if you're on Discord. I think you're on Discord, right? But I could also just email you. Maybe we could talk about it. I'm not positive if I can move one into the movie booking, because that one might be extra long. But normally I don't like to have longer days, which is what happens when I try to schedule a wannabe in with 2 other regular episodes. Draws my day out. But if I don't do that, I go a whole week without being able to read more than 2 chapters, and I just don't think I can accept that. So, we'll talk about it. And I will keep you guys apprised because, this is very important to me. And the booking system automatically slotted things in exactly where they fit, but I didn't realize that there was a whole week just completely skipped in the midst of that, or I probably would have tried to figure something out earlier. So anyway, just mentioning this now for those of you who are listening, in case there's like a long stretch with no episodes and you're sort of wondering where are they, it's possible that I did take that week, but we'll see. Anyway, love you guys a lot. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.